Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is winds of change. Sometimes change comes on like a whirlwind and makes a sweeping transformation, and other times change percolates up from below the foundation, shifting everything and moving it in subtle ways that we don't necessarily perceive right away. And so today we get to talk about change. Should be fun. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your organs, bringing vital life energy to your body and being. And as you exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, illuminating, electrifying, and energizing all your cells, all your molecules, all your electrons, and creating this brilliant beam of light from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together. Vigorously rub those palms together, feel that friction, the tension, the energy, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables you to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So it's a new week, and wow, change, winds of change. What change comes in so many forms, and we might make a case that we're always changing, even though sometimes things feel like they remain ever the same. And I'm speaking about this because I am feeling a bubbling up of change within me. I as you know, or you may not know, but I just spent a couple weeks in Mexico, and I think that it catalyzed, the trip catalyzed a deep change for me. And I think that we often experience, well, maybe not often, but occasionally we experience circumstances that plant a seed of change. Maybe seed of change is a better title for today than the winds of change, but a seed of change. It's an idea or a tickling that reaches us on perhaps an other than conscious level, even, that just sort of works underground like a seed, starting to germinate, starting to shift the soil, starting to send out tendrils of roots. Good morning, Gia. So good to have you here with me this morning and with all of us. Welcome, welcome. Great to be here with you. So we're talking about the winds or the seeds of change, and how change can work on us in so very many different ways. Sometimes with great drama and fanfare, and sometimes subtly growing through and as I was saying, shifting soils and sending out filaments of roots that reach out into new places, and nourishing and nurturing these new perspectives and new possibilities. And it's interesting, you know, we often talk about integrating change, and I'm thinking at this moment, you know, when we talk about integrating change, it's almost like the change has already happened and then we get to process it. And sometimes it feels like change is there kind of working under the surface, and having a constant action for us that isn't necessarily all that perceptible. It isn't necessarily something that we can articulate, but it's a felt sense of difference. You know, that something's different. I don't know if you've had that experience where perhaps you've woken from a dream and something's different, or you've had an experience and the world just is a bit different than it had been, and you might not be able to put your finger on it. You might just be feeling different in your skin somehow. And things feel less familiar. You know, maybe there's an angle of light that is illuminating things in a way that you hadn't previously been able to perceive. And yeah, so the question is, how do we navigate that? We get to find ourselves being more fluid, maybe gaining some sea legs to allow us to balance and compensate for the shifting grounds. And, you know, in our world these days, there are many shifting grounds, right? There's so much change afoot. And the question is, how do we navigate that? How do we embrace it and nurture it? I think there are points at which we cannot return, you know, to the way that things were. And I think we see that from our experience of COVID, you know, that there's a change that has happened to us collectively, humanity. And I couldn't quantify it. I think it's different for different people. And yet I think that there's probably a collective change that we're still discovering. You know, the seeds have been planted, and the change kind of has a life of its own. And I'm wondering for you, how do you navigate change? How do you try to pretend that everything's the same as it always was? Or do you embrace it and forward it? You know, do you allow yourself to move in the direction of change, or do you resist it? So what is it like, you know, to be present, consciously present to the shifting ground. I think that this has been a theme for all of us over the past couple years, for sure. And I think many of us tend to try to pretend that everything is the same, or that we can return to the way that things were. And yet there are these subtleties of change and transformation that are working both on and under the surface. And Gia says, I have been experiencing this in my mental health journey. It's a great experience, but still I'm learning to navigate it. It's not done once and for all. I'm learning to flow with it still. Past is past, and there was a lot of suffering. It's taking time. So Gia, thank you for connecting this with a mental health journey, because it is, when we've had a lot of suffering, when we've had a lot of pain, moving beyond that is stepping into a new identity. It's stepping into a new context of being. And to choose, this is something that I see a lot with clients and have seen with myself as well, that to choose to release those identities that we experienced for so long, the suffering, the depth of the pain that we knew ourselves by, to release that is in many ways terrifying, because we don't know who we'll be. We don't have a template for who we will be without that history, without that identity. We're not going to, obviously, we don't want to eradicate that history, but the attachment to, or the identification with that history is something that holds us bound. And we can allow ourselves to be in a flow rather than a holding pattern. So when we hold those places or those experiences as who we are, it constrains us and limits us from who we can become. And it's a delicate dance, because in knowing where we've been, we can limit ourselves to perpetuating those patterns. So there's the courage of stepping out beyond the knowing of ourselves, of our possibilities, of our history, stepping out beyond that familiarity to open whole new vistas. That's a possibility that we face. That's a potential that we face and that we have available to us in any waking moment. And yet, we don't necessarily take advantage of it. We don't necessarily take the opportunity to remake ourselves. where we can in any moment, truly. And it does require allowing ourselves to loosen our grip on our history and who we've believed ourselves to be. So I was talking with a friend, and I've been talking about moving to Mexico in, you know, the next couple years, next year, next couple years, whatever. And they were telling me that according to Torah, which is at the Jewish holy books, and I have this wonderful friend who's a Torah scholar, and we have these most delightful, interesting, fascinating talks about the wisdom that is in these ancient scrolls. So anyway, he was saying that when we move, we change our fate. And we can move physically to a new place, and that can change our fate, and we can make internal moves as well. When we shift internally, we can change our fate. So when we allow ourselves to release our hold on who we've been, then we open the doors to all kinds of possibilities that might have otherwise been unimaginable. And so Gia says, "Oh, Mexico, I want to hear about it." It's and this is what's working on me, and in ways that I realize that I am not even fully aware of. There was a wildness, an untamed wildness that I felt in Mexico, that it felt, the places that I went felt much closer to life, much more vital, much more raw, less curated than the life that I'm familiar with. And I think that deeper sense of vitality, somehow, like authentic vitality, I think it touched me in ways that I'm not yet aware of. It feels like a seed that is pushing the soil. Good morning, Rosalind. So good to have you here with us this morning. Welcome. Great to be with you. We're talking about the winds and the seeds of change, and how change comes upon us, and how we welcome it, and maybe how we make room for it. So I'm just looking at different ways, like a thought. I don't know if you guys have ever had what I call a what do we call it? Like a brain worm, like this little thought that just sort of starts gaining a life of its own, like the seed of change, the seed of a new way of thinking, the seed of a new way of being. And that seed takes on its own life and starts to grow and propagate. And I think we have we have this wonderful gift of possibility to allow ourselves to change by loosening our grip. Back to your point, Gia, about the past is past and there was a lot of suffering. It's taking time. It's taking time to release our hold on those things, to release our identification with our past. And it's not just time that it takes. I think it takes awareness, and that awareness grows in uneven ways, where we can allow ourselves to entertain possibilities that we wouldn't have previously entertained, where we can start to see ourselves in new ways, to see our possibilities in new ways. And I think this is a really important conversation, because the world is calling for change in such a deep and profound way. The world is calling us forward to become more, to become new in so many ways. And there's an unsettledness about that. It's a discomfort, or a like disruption. It can be a grand disruption, or it can be a disruption that is just sort of under the surface kind of unsettledness. But the more we are able to allow for that change, the more we are able to be living life with open hand, rather than grasping onto the past or grasping onto who we believe ourselves to be. The more we can open ourselves to our, I'm going to say fate and possibility, the more we can open ourselves to our potential, as we as we listen to the wind, winds of change, as we listen to the wind, as we allow ourselves to hear the whispers in the wind, to hear the whispers of our souls, because they'll start as whispers. And as we pay more attention, those voices gain more courage. And I think it takes courage to be willing to listen, to follow the sirens of our souls, to bring those voices present. And when we allow ourselves to do that, when we allow ourselves to step more into the change, rather than resisting the change, when we allow ourselves to dance with it, to move into it, to notice the subtle shiftings of the tides, that the world starts opening up in ways that we wouldn't have imagined. And I get that it's scary. It's scary because it's unfamiliar, and we don't know what to expect, and we don't know how to predict it. And there's such a richness in that. There's such an excitement, you know, if we can allow ourselves to take a deep breath and relax our shoulders and feel the gentleness of the breeze that is guiding us in new directions. You know, there's such a richness and magic in that, if we can allow it. You know, we have this illusion of control. We have this illusion that that we can control things, you know, and I do believe that at least we have the illusion of choice. You know, I wonder, we do get to choose consciously. And maybe that also is part of following our path, you know, that as we consciously choose to let go, consciously choose to entertain new possibilities, then maybe that is following the calling of our souls. So Jesus says it takes courage in the beginning, and later it becomes a habit to just flow with it as the unknown becomes familiar. I love that, Gia, as the unknown becomes familiar. So as it becomes familiar to be stepping into the unknown, as that discomfort becomes more familiar, it can become quite invigorating. Gia says, I think mind is all about habit-making machine. We just need to shift its focus within. It takes courage, but as it goes, it becomes exciting. Exactly. Exactly. We become more attuned to those subtle shifts, the subtle changes of the breeze that directs us toward our purpose, and it does become exciting indeed. So thank you for that, Gia. And yeah, so let's this notion of change and allowing that change, allowing it to work on us in the deepest and most glorious ways to connect us more deeply with our most authentic selves, our most authentic expression. Let's step forward into that. Let's step into that dance and see where it takes us. There's such magic to be had when we allow ourselves to relinquish the illusion of that control, maybe even the illusion of the choice. So I think that's it for today, talking about change. I know it was a bit abstract today, but change is the unknown, right? So with that, I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page. Good morning, Dido. So good to have you here with us this morning. And so much love to you guys, really, really, for being, holding each other, all of us arm in arm through these changes and conversations. It's such a gift to me, and I hope it is to you. And Edna, welcome. I haven't seen you here before. So glad to have you join us, and I hope to see you guys again here really, really soon. In the meantime, please check out the other awesome programming on Enlightened World Network and EWN One with the Earth. enlightened world living, and hope to see you again at 9 a.m. Eastern. Lots and lots of love.